A further development for Sikorsky was the H-34, also known as the turbine-powered Westland Wessex in Britain and built under license. Adopted across the US military and other nations, it was employed for anti-submarine operations, troop transport, and for picking up the odd stray astronaut. In the field, the rapid tactical deployment of men to combat zones fully equipped and ready to fight was a development for which commanders could see great potential, the cavalry giving up their horses for helicopters.
Here's one built by Westland Aircraft. Looks like a flying concrete mixer, doesn't it? Time now for the flying. A tiny Skeeter helicopter shows that even waltzing is within its scope. Like a runaway express train, the Bristol 173, the flying railway carriage goes through its paces.
Armed helicopters are helicopters that have been taken from another function, such as recon or transportation, and armed with either machine guns, bombs or rockets, and tasked as an assault vehicle in the air-to-ground role. This first occurred informally during the Korean War, when US Marines would fire from the open doors of the helicopter. Coming in to land in an unknown or hostile environment, the soldiers would strafe the surrounding trees. This was developed further by the French in Algeria and then later in Indochina. Between 1954 and 1962, the French military utilized several helicopters in the assault role. They used the Bell 47 helicopter with 2 machine gunners taking up position on the stretcher panniers. This gunship had insufficient power to assault the high peaks and mountains. They were tasked to reach inaccessible guerrilla positions. The Piasecki H-21 was fitted with rocket launchers and machine guns and even a bomb rack, but they lacked the performance to be effective assault vehicles. They were eventually just fitted with side-mounted machine guns for self-defense. The CH-34 was effectively used in the ground attack role, although due to the location of its fuel tanks was considered less capable to survive ground fire than the CH-21. Both were combined in counterinsurgent roles in attack and troop transport. Helicopters became natural sub-hunters, and several navies around the world began to fit out helicopters for this role. They could carry magnetic anomaly detectors and depth charges. The US Army began fitting rocket pods and machine guns to the larger Sikorsky.
Battle-weary feet, a soldier's nemesis. The brief pause allows communication with the ever-present field choppers, which pick up both allied wounded and the captured enemy.
With the helicopter becoming more involved in troop transport, helicopters needed the ability for both close support of infantry on the ground and fire suppression roles, particularly when transporting troops into hot zones of battle. UH-1B Huey was mounted with FAR rockets and machine guns. The US then upgraded the engines to cope with the added weight. The Soviet Union also saw this need for close ground support could be tasked to helicopters and took the Mil Mi-8 and added rocket pods. These developed into the Mil Mi-24, which saw extensive service in Afghanistan in the 1980s. But it was the Vietnam conflict that saw the true power and capability of the helicopter fully integrated into military service and set the pace for the future of this war machine. Armed troop transport vehicles carried cabin-mounted machine guns and side-mounted rocket pods and would assault enemy positions before landing and deploying troops. They would then lift off and provide close support air cover for the troops. A requirement not be met by the new Black Hawk was tasked to a small, light, single-engine aircraft called Little Bird. This small, light observation helicopter was a world record holder in speed, endurance, and climbing capability, and was perfect for special operations. With a 5-blade main rotor, it was relatively quiet as well. Used to move special operations troops about, they also carried snipers and were involved in many covert operations, as well as more general use in numerous combat scenarios. The Boeing CH-47 is a tandem rotor heavy lift helicopter with twin engines. It can reach speeds of 315 kilometers per hour. Used primarily for transport, its large ramp allows for rapid deployment of vehicles upon landing in combat zones. It is also a highly valued medical evacuation vehicle because of its internal capacity. Large numbers of casualties can be lifted and medical aid can be given whilst in flight. The very success of this model has seen it adopted by many Western forces, and it is still a mainstay heavy-lift helicopter today. They can be armed with crew-operated cabin machine guns. Likely the first organized use of a helicopter as a bomber would have been during the Vietnam War. The U.S. used Iroquois Chinook and Tarhe helicopters to deliver bombs to targets where conventional bomber aircraft were either impractical or unavailable. CH-47 was used chiefly to clear out bunkers and used an improvised bomb, a 55-gallon drum of CS powder. 30 could be carried by a Chinook. Using the M156 universal mount, cluster bomb and mine dispensers were fitted to helicopters. Standard 60 and 81mm mortars were also utilized, simply being dropped from the helicopter. The U.S. Army also tested the Chinook with large bombs, the M110,000 10,000-pound bomb and the BLU-82B 15,000-pound bomb, although the C-130 was found more appropriate to use these large land-clearing bombs. Soviet helicopters were also evaluated to be bomb carriers and have qualified their MIL Mi-8 and Mi-24 to carry such loads. The UH-60 Black Hawk and its naval variant, the Seahawk, were developed by Sikorsky Aircraft to replace the older Huey utility helicopter. The Black Hawk is a general-purpose, medium-lift, twin-engine, 4-blade helicopter. It can perform operations from troop movement and medical evacuation to electronic warfare, as well as close support fire when armed or anti-submarine duty for the naval variant. The Black Hawk can move up to 11 fully equipped combat soldiers or lift one 105mm howitzer piece with ammunition. Stub wings can be fitted to support additional fuel tanks or weapons loads. It was first in service with the U.S. Army in 1979 and first saw